curious about mental asylums? Like, why are all of them creepy and haunted? They all have a reputation for mistreatment and are known to be places that harbor negativity. There are over 1,288, and we need to dive into each one of them to uncover the other side of America's asylums and those trapped years after the door closes. This is the other side. Hello, welcome back to the other side. I'm always your host, ASOS. Thank you for joining me. If you're new, hi, welcome to the other side. We are happy to have you. We are happy to have those who are curious and nosy. If you are new, like, share, subscribe, and go follow my social media accounts. Let your friends know about the space. It's kooky, it's ooky. If you're joining us again, thank you so much for coming back. Thank you for joining me every single week. We try to post every week on Sunday, but life. So we're talking about mental asylums here in the United States of America. So where are we going first? Because like I said, there's 1,288. I feel like we could spend years talking about how many there are out there and how many of them are haunted and creepy. Because again, I feel like every single one of them haunted, creepy, weird. But when I had Googled for a mental asylum that was haunted, it gave me Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Western Virginia. Now pause. West Virginia, take me home. Country roads. Sorry, I had to sing for a second there. But if you go to Google Maps and you zoom out of this town, it is itty bitty, all right? It is a small speck on the map, all right? I have never heard of this place before. It's tiny. It's little, it's itty bitty. Now, a sanctuary for the mentally ill in the mid 1800s. It is over 160 years old, probably a little bit more. According to the website, it holds fascinating stories. Again, not my words. I'm not sure about that. But it talks about the Civil War and a gold robbery. So let's backtrack. Let's talk about this place. Let's talk about what is this mental asylum? How did it come to be? What's the history behind it? How did all the spooky ooky kookiness happen from this place? It was designed to hold 250 people. Now it says souls on the website, but we're not going there. It was constructed from 1858 and 1881. Now that's a long time period for it to be constructed, but we'll get into the details. It's hand-cut stone masonry building. It was designed by architect Richard Andrews, and he based the building on the Kirkbride plan. So what is that? Well, it's a 19th century model for mental health facilities that they believe the building could emphasize fresh air, natural light, and the therapeutic power of the environment. Long staggered wings, so each room has access to sunlight, cross ventilation. Well, we all know how that works out, don't we? But we will get into that later. In April of 1861, hostilities had broken out at Fort Sumter and the Civil War was set off. While that was happening, the construction of the Trans-Allegheny, I don't know how to say that word, Allegheny. I Google this stuff, I research, and I still don't know how to pronounce stuff. Y'all are gonna come for me in the comments. Asylum. By June, Virginia seceded from the Union, bringing all non-war related work to a halt. It set the scene for a dramatic event at 5 a.m. on June 30th, 1861. The citizens of Weston were awoken by drums and marching of soldiers entering their town. The 7th Ohio Infantry came into the town and ordered the troops to sweep through the town and seize any individuals who were suspected of Confederate sympathies. One of his men, Captain Liston, took 2 armed soldiers and made a beeline for a specific location of the real purpose of why they were there in the town. So where, you may ask, did they go? Well, they went to the Western branch of the Exchange Bank of Virginia, which held almost $30,000 in gold deposits by the state government to provide wages for those laboring on the new asylum. The mission was to seize the gold before it could be returned to Richmond and used to support the rebellion. Baker Robert McChallins was awakened by the commotion and found troops demanding he turn over the contents of the vault. He, of course, objected, but there was little that he could do. So he did what he was told. The amount was $27,000, but in today's money, that's over $500,000. The money was taken to Wheeling, where it funded the new state of Virginia, which in 1863 became West Virginia. So there is Virginia and then there's West Virginia. The partially built asylum and surrounding grounds became Camp Tyler, and Weston was an important military post. The west wing of the asylum was made into barracks, but the aftermath of the Civil War was a town that was financially ruined by the war and was destituted for over a decade. Now, that word means lack of money and food. The asylum did finish its completion, and it was a priority. And thankfully, because it was a priority to finish its construction, it gave an economic resurgence for the town. Now, that will later bite the town in the butt, but we will talk about that later. It opened to patients in 1864, but years passed and funding models changed, and the patient population bloomed. Now, the reason for people being admitted to this place was severe mental health, struggles with depression, mania, epilepsy, asthma, tuberculosis, reading too many novels, jealousy, religious enthusiasm, and women suffering from hysteria. So I always thought the mental institutions were odd because you would think that they're there to help people who are struggling in the mind, right? Like that to me is what I would assume that the whole purpose of a mental institution would be. People who are struggling with mania, people who, are maybe dealing with schizophrenia. They're just dealing with things that most likely need some kind of medical help because of their mind. But unfortunately, a lot of these mental institutions were also places where people with sickness, actual illnesses, it's not even a mental illness, it's just illness in general, and they were left there. So that's why a lot of these places are called tuberculosis hospitals, because people with tuberculosis would get sent there and be treated for it. And I just think that that's such a weird mesh. And I think that's why mental institutions are so weird, because it's like you have this weird mixture of patients and people that are being treated there, and they're all kind of being treated the same way in a way when you look at it. Like you could be there for asthma and you're getting a freaking lobotomy. Like that's real. Like you can Google it. Like I'm not making things up. You can actually Google this. Like there have been a lot of reported cases. I'm not saying here at this one, but there have been a lot of reported cases of people who get sent to mental institutions and they have tuberculosis, and for some odd reason they're getting lobotomies. They don't need a lobotomy. Well, first of all, nobody needs a lobotomy, but they're just sick. They're just ill. They have an actual condition that has nothing to do with their brain. You know what I mean? Asthma has something to do with their lungs, not the brain. And I think that it's just such a place where people and society dumped those that they just didn't want to deal with. You could even get thrown into a mental institution if you didn't agree with your husband. I mean, that's like real, you know? But anyways, off that rant. Life in the asylum started off well. In the mid to late 19th century, they were learning trades, they were farming, they were sewing. But 1938 came along, and there was such an influx of patients that patients were not being treated well anymore because the demand and the capacity was just too much. Now, some of the treatment though that they were receiving was insulin related comas. They were called insulin coma therapy. So basically, you would go into a diabetic coma, and they thought that it would rewire people's brains and cure them of their illness. But the side effects, girl, permanent brain damage, prolonged comas, and worse death. It sounds like those medical commercials where they go in a low voice while everyone's happy, like in the background, and they go, side effects include severe depression, rash, diarrhea, and in some cases, death. And you're just like, what? What do you mean? Like, it's just supposed to cure my freaking migraines, and you're telling me that it can cause freaking death? All right. Other treatments was metrozilio therapy, and that was such a disastrous treatment. Now, this treatment that they did resulted in seizures. So, yeah, none of these that they were doing was working. Now, the famous lobotomies were awful. Okay, lobotomies were horrible. If you don't know what a lobotomy is, I'm not gonna spare you the details. All right, just go look up whatever lobotomy is and then come back. All right, they were awful. They caused vegetated states, behavioral change, personalities change. People would get lobotomies and they would never be the same. Somebody could go in there, like I said, for freaking asthma, get a freaking lobotomy, and now they are a mental patient because the lobotomies were just so horrific. Like lobotomies always baffle my mind of how America came to that conclusion of that type of therapy. Like I don't get it personally. In the 1950s, again, the asylum was helping more than 2,400 people that overcrowded and inhumane conditions in here. Remember, it held 250 people originally. Now it's serving over 1,000 people. Okay, we gotta hold on and do the math there. There's 2,150 extra people. Where are they supposed to go? So, like just think like that for a second. Like, where do these people sleep? Like 8 people to a room, or what's happening? What's the real reality of these asylums? We really gotta think about that. Now, it became overcrowded, resources were scarce, there was not enough staff to maintain the patients, the building foundation was deteriorating, sanitation was becoming impossible to maintain. Worse was patients became violent. Patients were starting to attack each other, but they were also attacking staff. Now, there's this horrible story of a nurse who went missing. She was found months later, months, okay, dead at the bottom of the stairwell. But where did she go for all those months? I'm sure that they've checked that stairwell days and days and days leading up to that, never saw nothing, and then magically one day she ends up at the bottom of the stairwell. What? The building did close in 1994 with a decline and shift in public perception of mental health treatment, which was a good thing, man, because these asylums were not great places. Like, these asylums and tuberculosis went together terrible. The closure of the building, though, did have an impact on the local community, and the effect is still felt to this day. So remember, during the Civil War, the town was already suffering economic disdain. They were already not doing good when the Civil War ended, and this mental institution was helping the town out. Then it closes. That is just an economic hit to them. But we need to go to the other side. Now that we know the history, it's time to go to the other side of the asylum. So they do ghost tours, they do ghost hunts overnight at the asylum. It is believed that there are 8 spirits roaming the asylum. There's more than 8, but there's 8 that everybody is very much known about. One of the most well-known spirits is a little girl named Lily. Now, a version of this story is that there was this woman named Gladys. She was sent to the asylum, not knowing that she was pregnant, and she gave birth to a child, but unfortunately she passed away during childbirth. Now, Lily lived at the asylum until she was 9 years old. At the age of 9, unfortunately, she contracted pneumonia and she died. People to this day go to her room, they bring her toys, they bring her candy in hopes that she will appear. There is a story of a woman who was touring the asylum with a group of people, and she began to talk with a little girl who seemed lost. The woman was trying to convince the little girl to join the group, to come with them, so that way she could find her way from being lost. But as soon as the woman had turned away from her really quick and looked back to her, she just disappeared. Which I think is crazy. Like, did anybody else in the group notice her talking to this little girl, or did everybody just go, whatever, it's fine, it's whatever? Or did people see her? I really want to know. I want to know more about that story. There's another ghost named Dean, who Big Jim and David Monson murdered. Both were criminally insane and included in the asylum's top 10 most dangerous. Keep in mind, this mental institution had a top 10 most dangerous men in their asylum. Asylums, prisons. That's all I gotta say. Think about that for a second there. According to the stories, Big Jim and David Manson had it out for Dean. They had attempted to end his life multiple times. One day, Dean's luck unfortunately ran out, and they hung him. Now, Dean's spirit is a very quiet one. He doesn't really speak very much. But when he sees the shadow of Big Jim and David come around, he's out. Disappears. He's like, I'm not dealing with this. Peace out. I'm gone. Which sucks he has to deal with that in the afterlife. But he dips. Now, everybody says that when the shadows of Big Jim and David come, the energy in the room shifts. People feel ill, people feel sick, people feel uncomfortable and uneasy. The next ghost has the name of Slewfoot, but no one knows why. The rumor is that he roams the upper floor and he tortures people in the upstairs bathroom. That is terrifying. Now, there are some less hostile ghosts, according to a lot of websites. One of them is named Ruth. She is seen on the first floor. While she isn't hostile, she does hate men. So she is not a hostile spirit, but she does hate men. And she has been known to throw things at men if she's given the chance. And we can't blame her, okay? As women, we cannot blame her for hating men and for taking the opportunity in the afterlife to get back at them. We can't blame her. We cannot blame her. There are a bunch of Civil War ghosts that haunt the Civil War wing. There is a nurse named Elizabeth who was known for going floor to floor to take care of patients. What happened to her? Well, maybe she is the spirit of the nurse that went missing all those years ago. I'm gonna wonder if she is the spirit of that nurse that went away. Because there's not a lot known about her, but again, I'm wondering if there's some correlation between that. Now, people report seeing the nurse roam around to this day, still trying to treat patients from floor to floor, room to room. The last spirit is one that had a heart attack in the upstairs bathroom. His name is either Jesse or James, and he can still be seen in the bathroom to this day. More eyewitness accounts are from a guide who worked for decades at the asylum and seen things that are downright terrifying. One night, he and another guide were conducting conversation with nearby spirits using the spirit box. They had heard nothing but static until a word came from the white noise: evil. They had been hearing nothing from the spirit box, but they were hearing footsteps. So they had asked a question. They're like, well, we're not hearing anything, but we're hearing these footsteps. So they said, if the person who is walking, are you a good spirit or a bad spirit? And it said evil. And they were like, peace or out. We're not doing that. Then another incident had come when he was working, guiding a group through the asylum. He had become disoriented. He got a burning sensation on his back, and he found 4-inch red marks on his back. Now, from Reddit, I did see a forum from WeJ11 4 years ago. It said I went on a day tour there about 5 years ago with my girlfriend, the last tour of the day. I remember 2 very clear encounters. One, we entered a room that was some kind of behaving room where 2 others murdered a roommate through hanging with the sheets or something. The second I walked through the doors, I felt like I was walking through a sheet of frozen air in the middle of a hot summer day, and I knew something bad had happened in that room before the guide told us about it. I whispered to my girlfriend that somebody died in there, and she asked me how I knew afterwards. The second, at the end of the tour, we returned to the main entrance way by way of the long hallway on the left side. The guide had walked towards the entrance. My girlfriend and I both heard a bodiless whistle going back down the empty hallway we just came from. She completely denies it happens and says it was an employee. Later, she heard the same exact whistle tune in the video some ghost hunter had recorded that that had visited there. She still denies it to this day that it could have been paranormal. Paranormal Val Pal 123 was the main person on this thread. It says, for decades, I was a paranormal tour guide at the infamous location. It says that in 2021, they had retired from their position as a guide and ghost hunt event manager under severe burnt out. After all I had experienced there, it solidified in my mind that paranormal things defy rational explanation, do indeed happen, and certain phenomena are absolutely real. Electronic voice phenomenon, especially. It's almost October, and I'm feeling a little spooky. So here's a couple of strange things that I experienced my time there. One evening while I was training for the job, I was on the first floor with a couple of coworkers while everyone else was touring upstairs. We were just kind of killing time, quietly observing the area. Light from outside was coming in through the windows, casting on the inner hallways. In that light, I watched the perfect silhouette of a man from head to hip walk through the light from left to right. I said something about it, and three of us watched as a man's hand moved into the light from the right side. I immediately ran into the room and began looking out the window for somebody outside. There was no one there at the time, and the realization that from the ground to the bottom window was like 7 feet and didn't even occur to me. I will never forget the crisp, clear silhouette shape for as long as I live. We would experiment with the spirit box. It would rapidly scan frequencies and are believed to be communication devices. One person would use one with the noise canceling earbuds. All they're able to hear is the radio static and blips of a few random stations. When they hear a word or phrase, they are saying it out loud. I always liked this role in the experiment. One evening, my coworker and I ran one of these experiments in the notorious room where a murder in 1987 took place. For 10 minutes, I sat and listened to nothing but radio static through the spirit box. No blimps of radio, no nothing. Oh, this is the evil one. So this is the coworker that experienced the word evil. Okay, so it says they heard a woman's voice say evil, so I spoke and repeated the word evil. Next thing I knew, the coworker is shining her flashlight in my face to get my attention. I pulled the earbuds and she was practically frantic, saying it's time to go, it's time to go. So we hauled out of the room down the hall, down to the next hall section before she would even tell me what happened. While I was hearing nothing but that, she kept hearing what sounded like someone shuffling their feet and walking around outside the door. She had spoken up and said, whoever is out in the hallway, are they nice? And that's when I spoke out and said evil. Ah, so that's the full story. Oh, that's interesting. That's a really cool Reddit post. I'll definitely leave it in the comments so you guys can read everything. But definitely, a lot of the staff has had a lot of experiences in there. It's not just even people that visit and conduct these ghost tours, it's also the staff that's really haunted by this building. Well, this was our first mental institution that we had dived into. It definitely sounds like a very creepy place. It does sound like a place that harbors a lot of negativity and a lot of hurt. And I do feel bad for all those people who died here and who had experienced here care that was not actually good care. Thank you guys so much for watching The Other Side with me. I appreciate you guys so much for sticking around and watching with me. I hope that you guys have a very wonderful day. I think you guys have a good one. This was Spooky Ookie Kooky time. This was The Other Side with me, your host, ASOS. And if you guys have stories about this mental asylum, or if you guys know one that I should do next time, please let me know down in the comments section below. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.